Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a wife, mom of two, VBAC mama, and doula. Join us every episode to learn from professionals, special guests, and moms just like you, ensuring that you know what you need to know and discover things that you didn't know before. I believe in you. Let's doula this, and let's navigate the transition of entering motherhood together. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Entering Motherhood. In this episode, we chat with Katelyn Fusco, who, if you don't know her, she is the creator of the Happy Homebirth Podcast. In this episode specifically, she shares her story on how she got started, and she talks about her own homebirth experiences and how that really inspired her to educate and empower mothers even more. We talk about the rarity of home birth in the U.S., the importance of informed choice, self-advocacy, storytelling, and advice on processing our birth experiences and how that will help build our confidence in our motherhood journey. We recap on her talk from the Bilger Village Summit and touch on the transformative power of sharing our stories, specifically our birth stories. And this is a little bit longer of an episode because Katelyn is just so easy to talk to, so captivating to listen to. And I know that you're going to get so much out of this episode, whether you are just curious about home birth or seriously considering it as part of your birth plan. So let's get this episode started. Hello, and welcome to Entering Motherhood. I'm super excited to have you here and chat. But how about for the listeners that don't know who you are, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. This is going to be such a fun conversation. I'm Katelyn Fusco. I am the host of the Happy Homebirth Podcast and all the little things that the Happy Homebirth Podcast is involved in. We do childbirth education specifically for homebirth mothers. I love teaching. I love sharing. I love facilitating stories. Like that is my heart, is connection, connecting mothers with resources, connecting mothers with one another. And I think that's what was so special about how I got to meet you, Sarah, through the Bilger Village Summit, which is exactly what you guys were doing. So what a special connection in and of itself.
Yeah, we had so much fun planning that. We were super happy to have you there. And like you said, it really is like that connection, and like the in-person connection too is just so vital. And it was such an experience, and we're excited to continue to do that and have, different people come back and different people come and see how that evolves and what that goes to.
It's going to be amazing.
Cool. So how about we kind of like backtrack and talk about how you really got into all of this and what that journey was like?
Sure, gladly. So, I went to college to be a sign language interpreter. So, of course, I'm a home birth podcast host. No, so I started my career right out of college and loved sign language, but just was struggling with the career itself. And I remember thinking, I love health. I love nutrition. I love these things so much. How can I kind of pivot and start focusing on that? So I became a holistic health coach. And one of the things that you were supposed to do is determine, what is my niche? What audience am I trying to serve? And I thought, what would be better than working with pregnant mothers? Because that not only does it affect them, but it affects their children long term. Get them when they are making all these changes anyway. They're open, they're willing, they're expansive. Why don't we start there? So being a very normal, not weird person at all, I found a list of midwives in South Carolina and called them up individually. They had no idea who I was, and asked them, would this be something that your clients would be interested in? And one of the midwives was like, this is really interesting. Yeah, I'd love to meet up with you. I met up with her. She breastfed her baby in front of me. That was the first time I'd ever seen anybody breastfeed. This was back in 2013. And I'd never been exposed to anything like that. And I remember being like, this is amazing. Like, this is just the most beautiful thing. Wow. And then she started telling me about her job as a midwife. And I thought, okay, maybe I want to be involved in birth. Maybe that's what this is all about. So I was, raised by a mother who was not interested in birth. It was a very scary topic. So just didn't really have any kind of background knowledge of this. But she took me on to start learning under her. I began apprenticing. I started attending home births, and it just changed my life. So I was apprenticing, and then I became pregnant with my first. So I'm receiving care and providing care at the same time. Went through my entire pregnancy that way, gave birth to my first daughter at home. It was a pretty grueling labor, pretty long and intense, and I kind of did everything that I maybe shouldn't have done. Like I tried to get things going on my own and kind of pushed things too early and didn't rest when I should have. But I mean, it did help me learn a lot. So I had that birth and continued to apprentice while my daughter was very young. My oldest was very young. But then my midwife moved to New Hampshire from South Carolina. And when she moved, it was just like, okay, I think this is really the right time to step back. Anyway, my daughter was, almost a year old and really I felt like I got to be home. I got to be sleeping to give this kid what she needs. Like, I can't be on call right now. So I stepped back, went home, was just being with her. And then I became pregnant when she was, they're 2.5 years apart. So a little while later, I became pregnant with my second. And it was right around the time that I became pregnant with my second that I truly feel it was a divine calling of like, you need to start a podcast. And I have no technological experience. Like even today, like I am fumbling around constantly. I don't know what I'm doing. It's, it really is like God's goodness that this has worked out but what I missed so much was the connection between mothers and their midwives and that ability to provide space, to provide a place for processing to happen, and also to provide an example, just like my midwife had done for me, just literally just breastfeeding in front of me. It changed me. And it gave me this sense of, I can do this. And so that's how the Happy Homebirth podcast was born. And why it was born was to provide examples, case studies, of women who said, I can do this. And they did it. And then when you hear that, it helps you think, wait a minute, if these people did it, maybe I could do it. And then we get this community. We don't feel isolated anymore. We don't feel like we're totally crazy for doing this, because the reality is that less than 2% of births in the United States right now happen outside of the hospital. So it is a small group. So it can feel very isolating. It can feel like you're very siloed. So to be able to have community around that, it's just, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy that you went. I never knew that about you, that you went from doing sign language. And fun fact about me, when me and my sister were younger, we were in like a sign language group. And we would go and perform like different places, and we did like Christmas songs. And I remember doing like the national anthem, but like all I could say was like, "Oh, say," like
I can do the national anthem, baby.
Like that's like I remember like bits and pieces, but that's too funny that like do you still use your sign language often, or
I swear that my oldest sucked the signs out of me when I was pregnant with her. They're gone. Like they're so gone. But now I'm a homeschooling mom. And so my kids, we wanted to do a foreign language with the curriculum that we do. And I was like, oh, well, we're doing sign language. And so now I'm going back and relearning a lot of the things that I'd forgotten, and they love it. So
yeah, that's so interesting. We've done like the baby signs too with our kids,
which is so helpful.
Mm-hmm. It is. That's so cool. But yeah, I think, just like your journey and like that pivot and really kind of, like you said, like that calling, that divine intervention of like, okay, like look at how useful this is and look at the community that you've built and the connections that you've allowed. And like you said too, like hearing other people's stories and hearing those examples really does kind of set a spark off of, oh, like this is an option for me, one. And then two, like it's possible. And then like just being able to see that journey is a possibility, I think just goes such a long way, because a lot of the times we don't know what's out there. We don't know what's possible until we do start hearing these stories and we do start hearing these examples, and you have conversations with other moms, or maybe you're pregnant and you don't even know that home birth is a potential in your community or what that looks like. I know when we were pregnant with our first, I had a friend that was going to the birth center, And I was like, what is that about? Like, I wasn't even sure what a midwife was when I was pregnant with my first, let alone now I do doula work. Like, I was like, what is a doula? Like, and so it's like, you just don't hear about these things in the mainstream. And like you said, it's less than 2% of people, like even probably less than that in a lot of areas. So, like, how do we start learning about home birth or like hearing about this or understanding that it's a possibility for us?
That was the exact issue because, when I was sitting in those prenatals, the thing that came up again and again was I feel alone. Like nobody understands what I'm doing. Everybody thinks I'm crazy. And this was, things have changed in our area significantly from 2013 and 2014, significantly. Because at that time, I mean, it was just, there were a couple of midwives and now, like, there are more midwives, there are more people interested. I think that the birth center, even though it wasn't around for long, it served a massive and vital role in what has happened to our community. Because then these women who maybe weren't ready or like even considering the idea of giving birth at home, at least were like, oh, wait, this sounds interesting. This could be cool. This could be good. Then it was like a gateway drug, Like it was like, oh, wait.
Yeah, a little like pivot step.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I am a powerful woman. I'm the one that can do this. If I can do it here without any of the things, maybe I could do it at home. And then, of course, when the birth center closed and COVID happened and all of that, it was just even more. Those people that were like kind of on the fence just jumped off. But yeah, you're so right. I remember when I found out about giving birth outside of the hospital, same thing. I had no idea that that was even a possibility. My mom had all of us as C-sections. And my assumption was like, okay, she believed her body didn't work. Like her body could not do it. And so then, growing up, I thought, well, like, okay, my mom's body, like, it didn't work. Mine's not going to work. So I'll have a C-section too. Like, that's just how it's going to be. And I wasn't even worried about it. It's not like it was a thing where it's like, oh no, it's just like, oh, that's just what is going to happen. And then while I was in school, actually, so interesting, a mentor of mine, she told me, oh, I had a water birth. And I was like, wait, what? What was that again? Come again? What? And she had used an out of hospital birthing center in the area. And she told me like, yeah, I didn't have an epidural. And my mind was blown. Like, wait, people do that? Which is such a funny question. Like, when you think about like the whole of humanity, like we have not had these things. But my question was like, oh, you can do that? People can do that? And so I remember I went home that day and like started typing in. I remembered the name of the birth center. And so I like typed it in. I found them on Google and like looked through everything and was just like, I'm going to do that. Like, I just knew I'm going to do that. Like, I am going to have a birth without medication because that seems crazy. And, and it's just so funny how, like, I mean, it takes some type of exposure. And so having stories, whether it's the Happy Homebirth podcast or your podcast or any other platform that just says like, hey, just so you know, this is available. I'm not trying to force anybody into this. I just want you to know it's available and it could be a good option for you. If you know about it, you might love it.
Yeah. And I think there is like that reaction. A lot of times it's either, you hear it and you're like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. I don't want to do that. Or, oh, that's crazy. I want to do that. like
how personality.
Epic, yeah. Like how epic would that be? Or how cool would that be? Because yeah, like my first resulted in a cesarean and I just knew I don't want that again. So that's where like I really started digging into the research and learning a little bit more and really kind of like understanding what goes into birth. And then our second was still at the hospital, but it was completely unmedicated. I literally walked in, was ready to go. He popped right out. And so now this one, I'm like, yes, like we're going to have a home birth. Like this sounds so fun. Like I'm, dreaming of it and thinking of all the things. And, like you said, there's water birth and that for me right now, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be in the water, but it's like you still have all of these options, like being at home. And some people are like, I don't want the mess or like, I don't want to like be at home. And it's like, okay, yes, birth can be messy, but, like, it's not going to be, crazy that, there's gonna like, you have things in place, and I think it's, like, the more you, like, learn about it and the more you, like, understand, but it is a matter of, finding your preference and seeing, like, what you feel comfortable with. And how you said, like, nobody's forcing you to have, like, a specific birth, and that's, hospital or home or birth center, wherever you choose. Nobody's forcing you to go to that specific place, but I hope that, people feel confident and comfortable with where they want to birth, because some people are going to feel so much more comfortable at the hospital. That's just their mindset. That's just where they're at. And other people are like, heck yeah, like, let's birth at home.
Mhm.
And it's nice to know that there's all those different options and, like, such a range of possibilities.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, and that is the unfortunate issue, is that everyone knows about the hospital. Like, we all know about the hospital. We saw the hospital on TV. We watched teen pregnancy, like, all of those shows on TLC growing up. We know about that option. But so many people don't even realize that there are other options out there. Like I said, I think our community, we're in a really lucky area where there's a lot of discussion about it. There's a lot of information. There are some truly phenomenal providers. But, as a whole, nationwide, that is not the case. And so just hearing like, oh, hey, this is another avenue that you may want to explore. And there can be some real benefits here, if you're interested. That can just be so helpful. And for example, just sharing, what is it really like? Like, for, you're saying, people are like, oh, what about the mess? I get that all the time. I hear that all the time. My husband says no because it's going to be messy and, like, we don't want to ruin our couch or whatever. And it's like, if you only knew how midwives are these magical cleaning fairies, and there are ways of doing things, and everything is prepped, and they make your bed in a certain way, and they take the sheets off and they wash them, and when they leave your home, nobody would know that you'd had
Yeah.
birth. Nobody would know you'd given birth there. Like, those are, and it's like some of those things which on the surface are like, oh, really, that's what's holding you back. But those are the things, because there are just unanswered questions. So if we can have a space where we provide the answers, then you can lay it all out and say, okay, now that I know what this is, I can compare this to the hospital, which I also know. And then the other issue with that is sometimes people don't actually know about the hospital. Sometimes people think they know about the hospital and think that that's the only way to go, but then they don't realize, hey, this hospital system is not set up with you in mind. This hospital system is set up with the people at the hospital in mind. Your home birth at your home, that is yours, is set up with you in mind. So that's another, it's just another issue that we have to kind of open up and pull all the things out and kind of see what's here. We have this thought of home dangerous, hospital safe. Not always the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like you said, too, like movies and TV shows and even the news, I feel like when we hear about home birth or, people accidentally having a baby at home, it was not a planned home birth. So yeah, it's chaotic, it's messy, it's, not typical. The baby was in the closet or, all of a sudden, like, in the car or whatever it might be. Like, it's these, like, crazy scenarios that are so unorganized. But when you're planning for a home birth, it's so different. And I don't think we have examples of that in, movies and entertainment and things like that.
No.
And it's usually these, like, pandemic sort of scenarios where, end of the world and they have to have the baby at home because all the hospitals are shut down, and it's a lot of, screaming or the mom dies. It's like, that's not how it is. And I think it's like the more examples that we see, like these positive, very planned, intentional home births, it does make a difference, and it does make it less scary. Like you said, a lot of these questions are just, like, unanswered and unknown, and I think just getting the ball rolling of, like, well, what would that look like? Or how did that work? Can really just pivot and change somebody's perspective.
Yeah. One thing that I have always thought about, like, all of the media, especially the TV shows and the movies, is like, There is just an ungodly amount of sweat coming off of the mother's face. Like, I don't know what that is about. I have never seen a mother just sweating the way that I see them sweating
Yeah.
birth
Oh.
scenes. What is that? And then just always like, the water breaks and then they're pushing and it's like so painful and they're screaming in pain. And it's just like, have none of these people in this entire set, have none of them
Right.
seen a birth? Like, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah. Even the way like the baby comes out.
Wow, it's a 3-month-old.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like, I didn't know what a placenta was when I was pregnant. Like, I took a birth class and, like, learning about that. It's like, okay, like, maybe you've heard about the umbilical cord, but it's like you don't really comprehend, like, what is that attached to? And then you have to birth that placenta. Like, they're not birthing placentas in the movies.
What a good point, Sarah. I haven't even thought about that. You're so right. Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness.
Like, all the afterbirth and what happens at, like, it's just like, oh, you have this sweet little baby and you're just holding them and that's it. It's like,
Done.
no, like there's still so much. And then just, I mean, yeah, even digging into postpartum. And that's what I'm really excited just to be home this time around and to not have like those every hour, every 2-hour check-ins and somebody like knocking on the door or flipping on the lights or we have to adjust you or we have to do this or don't sleep with your baby that way or, like
I
I'm
can't
like,
imagine.
hey, we've done this once or twice. Like, I think we know what we're doing. And even for first-time moms, like, you get to learn all these things. And you have time through your pregnancy to answer all those questions and figure out all those little nuances.
I think that really what you just described is one of the worst aspects about the hospital in terms of setting us up for failure in postpartum. The one thing that you need after birth is rest. Like we need rest. We need skin to skin with our baby. We need, some scrambled eggs and we need rest. That's it. That's the thing. And at the hospital, it's just so starkly different. And, for some of us, it really is the best choice. I know that's your preference and that's wonderful. But I do think it's really unfortunate no matter what, that you are being woken up constantly. You're being poked, prodded, touched, moved, adjusted all through the day, all through the night. No wonder we are struggling with postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. Like these things build up. Like those first few days are critical. And so we're not doing ourselves any favors by being woken up constantly is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And depending on what time of day you have your baby, kitchen's closed. You'll get a meal in the morning. Like, okay.
Are you kidding?
Like I just went through how many hours of labor and you didn't let me eat. Mm-hmm. And now you're telling me there is nothing for me to eat.
Besides like red Jell-O.
Like, yeah. I can go get you another popsicle from the freezer. Like, it's just like things like that like you don't really like comprehend. And like when you only know that is the option, you're just like, okay, I guess this is how it is. Or like all my friends did it this way. Or like this is how my family was. And this is just, this is just what it is. And understanding that there is that different possibility and there is another option. And
I think it also very much bleeds into our motherhood journey if we aren't aware. So, for example, this is something that you can do whether you are giving birth at home or in the hospital, but recognizing that you are the one in control. It is your baby. You are the one giving birth. This doctor is not doing it for you. Even if you're having a cesarean section, you are the one giving birth and you are the one that gets to make the decisions. If we can really not just say it, but genuinely internalize it, I think that changes a lot. Because what can happen is we get put on this conveyor belt, we go through the experience, we have the induction, and that doesn't go well, and then the Pitocin is hurting so bad, and then we have the epidural, and then our heart rate's going down, but then the baby's being squeezed too tight, all of the things, then we have a cesarean section, and it just feels like, whoa, everything just happened to me. Like I wasn't involved. It happened to me. And I feel like the system is kind of set up that way to where it's like, oh, ma'am, like I'll take care of it for you. How does that feel when we are entering motherhood? Like how does that feel? That's not empowering at all. Yet, whether we do it at home or in the hospital, but at home, it's super it's super obvious that you're the one in charge. There's no questioning who's in charge here. This is your turf. This is your home. You are birthing this baby. But even in the hospital, we can take that understanding because that is true. That is the reality of the situation. That doctor works for you. So knowing I'm the one in charge, I'm the one making these decisions, that's the way you want to step into motherhood. Knowing that you are the one in charge, knowing that you are fully capable of taking care of these children, this gift that was given to you, you are the one that can steward it. Absolutely. And this other person, they can help you. This doctor can help you. That's wonderful. But you are the one.
Yeah. And I think they lead you to believe that you're not sometimes, or, even, working as a doula and going in, like, it's been a lot of lessons in me, like, understanding, like, how can I go through this differently with another client, as simple, I don't want to even say like as simple, but like something like cervical checks, like I've had a really tough fight in hospital settings of like, oh no, this is what we have to do. We have to do this, or we can't admit you, or we have to do this, or like, the doctor can't come in, or we have no idea how far along you are. We have to, start a different protocol if we don't know. And I actually heard a comedian talk about his wife like being pregnant and going, to the doctor. He's like, I went to every prenatal appointment, and he's like, and they had cervical checks. I didn't call it that, but like he was like, they were doing cervical checks like every single time. And he's like, why am I here? And people in the comments were just like, every single time. And they were like, I didn't have to do it until I was 36 weeks or 37 weeks or whatever it was. And then even below those comments, it was like, you didn't have to get them at all. And so it's like understanding that, like when you walk into an appointment with an OB, like they are going to just say like, okay, like put this gown on and we're going to do a cervical check. And you're just like, okay, like, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But if you are having a home birth, like maybe your midwife's like, do you want a cervical check? Like even when they're there and you're in labor, do you want this? Like maybe, they suggest like, I think it might be a good idea just to see where you are, but they're never forcing that on you or telling you you have to do this like one thing or this specific thing. And it's such a different, I guess, like atmosphere and environment compared to these hospital settings. Like, oh, we have to start Pitocin. You're not far along enough. Oh, we have to do this. And you just kind of go through that flow of, okay, I guess this is what I have to do.
Yeah, you said have to. You said have to.
Mm-hmm.
And what is so interesting though, I think that what's amazing about the midwives model of care and home birth is that yes, absolutely, it is set up far more for your success. However, one thing that I have noticed is that it can be very easy to fall into, like, to lull yourself into the thought that because I'm having a home birth, I did it. I made the decision. I'm having a home birth, so I did the thing. But advocacy and taking charge of your care and taking charge of your responsibility, it starts there. It doesn't stop there. And really, a lot of this is actually what I try to teach my students is before you even hire your midwife, you need to understand what's important to you. You need to have a list of questions to ask yourself. What's important to me? Do I want this? Do I want that? How do I feel about the vitamin K shot? How do I feel about this? How do I feel about what would I want if I were 42 weeks and, my midwife is saying I need to transport to the hospital? Like how would I want to handle that? So before we even have a list of questions to ask our midwife when we are determining whether or not we're going to enter into care with this person, we need to ask ourselves way more questions to figure out what we believe about things. Because once you know what you believe, and once you know what your opinions are and your desires are, then you can walk in with a care provider who maybe even has different opinions than you, different preferences, but you can more likely work it out at the beginning, as opposed to walking in, not really knowing what you believe about things, expecting that your midwife is going to be the one that is going to teach you over time, and then finding out at the end of pregnancy, like, oh, my baby's breech and I can't have a home birth now. Like, wait, what? Just being completely thrown off. Or, oh, I'm 42 weeks and now I have to be transported. Like, things coming out of, quote, left field. But if we had asked the questions in the beginning, we would know where we stand. and we would know where our care provider stands, and we could make a choice on who we're using based off of, okay, are we in alignment here or not? Because otherwise, it's very simple and I don't think it's even intentional, but just like the hospital has a routine, our midwives have routines, right? And they're much more willing to be flexible, but they have common ways that they do things. And so we have to make sure that we know what we want so that we can inform our care provider and that our wishes can be followed. We have to have wishes in the first place, right? Like we have to know what we want.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I mean, with any birth setting, with any scenario, it really is like, what do you want this to look like? And I think I've seen such a range of different people, like, even people looking for doula, they're like, oh, well, my friend had a doula or I heard about a doula, so I think I want a doula. And I'm like, okay, but why? Like, what role am I playing? Or how is that transitioning into your plan? Or like, so like, I really try to do these like appointments before I even book clients of like, where am I fitting in and like why do you want me? Because you can't just be like, oh yeah, like go through the checklist, like, oh, I got a doula, oh, I got a midwife, like everything's gonna go perfect. And it's like you really do have to be intentional about that and plan it out and determine, like you said, like what do I want and why do I want this? And it's not something that we can just, check off. And there is deeper understanding and more education that we should be going through because our midwife, our doula, like all these other people, like we can't just expect them at all of these appointments, even if you go to frequent appointments, to be teaching us everything and letting us know all the different options. And especially like in an OB setting, like you go there and they're like, do you have any questions? And if you don't have any questions prepared, they're just going to be like, okay, all right,
Bye.
good appointment, bye.
Yep. Yeah. And what I like to think though is that this is, we know it's talked about a lot, I feel like more recently, how birth is a rite of passage. This is the transformational moment where we go from maiden to mother and we really do turn into a new iteration of ourselves. We are no longer the person that we were before giving birth. We are a new version of this person. We're an upgraded version. It's beautiful, but it's very intense. This is an intense time, and becoming a mother is very hard work. There are a lot of changes in our mind that have to take place. We're no longer self-focused only, but we are focused on our children, and we have to raise these children and protect them and keep them safe. And it takes boundaries. It takes telling people you love, no, absolutely not. It takes a lot of growth. And what a beautiful thing to wrestle with in pregnancy. That's our growing grounds. Like this is where we learn the skills that we need for motherhood. It takes us figuring out what is important to us. It takes us advocating for ourselves and for our baby. It's not just for us, it's for our baby. We're sharpening those knives. We're building those skills now and then taking that into motherhood. So remembering that, it becomes less of a burden and more of a, oh, this is good practice. Like, cool, I'm going to figure out what's important to me and I'm going to tell my care provider. I'm going to let them know where I stand and I'm going to ask where they stand. And we're going to treat each other like adults and figure out how we can work together, if we can work together, or if we need to find somebody else that's a better fit. That's great. But being able to take that responsibility and look at it as a good thing, not like a scary thing. It's like, okay, well, you might feel a little bit scared. You might feel a little bit nervous. That makes sense. These are new skills, but I'm going to do it anyway. And you're going to be so much better off for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if it's not your provider during pregnancy, maybe it's a pediatrician in postpartum or, even just like you, like navigating different people and atmospheres and maybe you need lactation support, like whatever it might be, it's like you're gonna have to do these same kind of lessons, if you will. And I do believe like they'll keep on repeating and they'll keep on showing up if it's something that you're meant to learn and explore and dive deeper into. And so like the same thing will keep on coming up for you. And if you're not like willing to really open up and go through that process and understand it a little bit more, it's just going to be a struggle.
Yeah, it's going to keep coming. coming. Like it doesn't end. It doesn't end after birth. That's the beginning,
Yeah.
and we have to learn to work with our family members that mean well, but do things differently than maybe we want. All of these different, our community, we have to be able to advocate for our children, say what's best for our family, be able to express those things. And so being able to do it in this time, I mean, this is the time that your body is primed to make these changes. I think that's what's so incredible about pregnancy is that your body is growing. Like you are physically growing and your brain is rewiring. This is the time to make changes. This is the time to lean into your intuition because your intuition is heightened. So all of these things it's almost comical how it's like, this is intentional. This is the time to make those changes. This is the time to grapple with it because we are in an expansive state. We are physically, mentally, emotionally expanding. It's time. It's time to take these things on. It's time to lean into our intuition. It's time to make the changes because we're about to go through this rite of passage and come out the other side, something completely changed.
Yeah. And I mean, that happens every single time, every single pregnancy, every single birth, every new stage. And that's like, it's really cool. Like this will be our third baby and to see like that transition from our first to now and just understand like how many times I've changed and pivoted and adjusted. And I'm like, I was crying the other day because I'm like, what is this going to be like? Like, because you don't know. And it's like just such a natural response. Like you said, it's normal to have like fears and unknowns and things like that. And it's good to just like express them though and talk about it. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, I don't know what this is going to be like with 3 kids. Like, I don't know how the dynamic's going to change. Like, our 2 older kids are just, they have this really awesome relationship. And sure, sometimes they fight and sometimes they get along and they love each other and they hate each other, like whatever it is. Like, but now there's going to be a third one. And then me and my husband are going to be navigating 3 kids. It's not like you take one and I take one. It's all 5 of us.
It's a bunch.
Yeah.
We've got to gavel now.
Yeah. And so like it really is.
I will just say, Sarah, I will say the transition from 2 to 3 was glorious for us. It was the best thing. And having those older 2 is just the biggest blessing of my life because they take care of their baby brother and treat him like a prince. And it is so fun. So I just pray that over your family.
Thank you.
The same fun experience.
Yeah. Because on one end, I'm like, it's going to be amazing. And like, I'm so ready for this. But it's also going to be an adjustment. Like our son, our youngest right now, he loves to cuddle. He's such a mama's boy. Like he's so connected to me. And like I was telling you, he's been waking up and he's been coming into our bed. And I'm like, how will this change? Like, what will this be like? Yeah. And it's like, I know every stage that we've had so far has just been like magical and wonderful, but it's that like, just thought that runs through your head of what's this going to be like.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which is, like you said, it's totally normal. Like that makes sense. That makes sense to be like, what is this going to be like? Because you don't know and you can't know and you won't know until it happens. Like, yeah, that's real. That's a very real thing.
Yeah.
But also, like, isn't it amazing? Isn't it so amazing to you now have a track record. Okay, we made it through this thing. We did this thing. We had this change. And look where we are. We've come this far. Like, it's nice to see like, oh, we have a bank account now of all these times that we've had transitions and changes and they've turned out beautifully. So, it's beautiful. But you're right. Every single time. Single time. It's not a once, like, not like, oh, it's my first pregnancy and this is the one time. No.
Yeah.
It's every time. And it's even not in pregnancy. But this is a very a palpable feeling around the amount of change that's taking.
Like, what would you say to somebody who maybe had a hospital birth for the first, or this is their first, and they're thinking about home birth, and where would they kind of just start in that? Like, how do you even begin to comprehend like what that might look like? Like we've been talking about home birth and like going into like details and stuff, but if somebody's like, actually, like maybe that is something that I want to do.
Yeah. My recommendation really would be, I mean, stories. So, I was actually talking to one of my friends yesterday, and she was talking about how she read Ina May Gaskin's book. I think it was her guide to childbirth. But she was like, what's funny is the first half of the book is stories. It's just all these stories. And she was like, I really lost interest after the stories. It was the stories that pulled her in and that made her think about how she could give birth. It was the examples, the case studies. And so if that's where you are, where you're like, could I do that? Is this possible? I highly recommend listen to birth stories. Listen to home birth stories in particular. Hear how different people did it, because guess what? It varies wildly. That's the beautiful thing about birth, is that it is so varied in how it unfolds. Hear all of these stories, be inundated with these experiences, and then the rest will kind of flow from that. You kind of reach a point where you're like, oh, I think I want to do this. I think I can do this. And then obviously I have childbirth education for home birth mothers. Of course, I would love for you to do that. And in that, we do focus so much on instincts and intuition. And like I said, figuring out what's important to you. Because what's important to you, Sarah, may not be what's important to me. Or we could look at the same discussion point. Like we could look at GBS testing, and we may have completely different opinions on whether we think that this is important or whether we think that it's not important or what we would do if we had GBS. I don't care. I don't care what you want to do. It doesn't matter to me what you want to do. What I care about is that you know what you want to do and you are confident in what you want to do. That's it. That's the gold of motherhood, is knowing what you want and doing it and feeling confident behind it. So that's what we focus on. And then, of course, learning what childbirth actually looks like learning the stages of labor, knowing what's going on inside of your body, that is tremendously beneficial, especially from a physiological, instinctual way. You said, I didn't know what a placenta was. Isn't that just what the heck, man? Come on, guys. How are we not talking about these things? It is so important to know, especially for our generation, I feel like it's really important to know what's going on, because we do not, most of us have the people above us, generationally, that gave birth at home or that gave birth unmedicated. A lot of it was lots of interventions. So we don't have a lot of stories that we can connect with of oh, I've seen this happen before. So instead, what can be really beneficial is knowing the process, understanding what's going on inside of our own bodies, so that when these things are happening, we're like, oh yeah, I remember this was going to happen. Oh, this is where I am. Oh yeah, that they said that was going to happen. And that's very comforting. That can feel, especially for some personality types, that can feel so good. Oh, I knew this was going to happen. And then the other aspect is, learning how to prepare techniques. What kinds of techniques can we use to make this not stressful, to make this not look like what it looks like on TV? How can we learn to relax into this? How can we release even more? So those are the kinds of things that we want to kind of dive into after we've made the decision to give birth at home. But before, it really is just kind of putting yourself in this place to wonder, to be curious. Could I do it? Of course, a lot of times the other issue is maybe your spouse is nope, nope, dangerous, not doing it. And really, I feel like sometimes spouses get a bad rap for that. It's oh, well, my husband just won't let me do it or whatever. I feel like once again, it comes down to just a lack of education. That desire to say no, and I'm not letting you do this or whatever. Usually, I'm not saying across the board. Sometimes people are just not nice. But a lot of times, I think that it's coming from fear, from a lack of education, and from a desire to protect. My wife is giving birth and I'm not giving birth. I can't do anything about this. So I want to control it the best way that I can. And the best way I can control it is you go to that hospital, Missy, and you have that baby there. And so then providing information for spouses is critical so that we can not only be okay, well, I'm doing it either way, but that we can bring them in and bring them into the situation so that they're a big part of it and they're your biggest supporter and they want it too. That's what we want, obviously. That's way more preferential. So focusing on spousal communication, being able to grow and strengthen that relationship in pregnancy. Because I will tell you, birth is magnetic. It can pull a couple together like nothing you've ever seen before. I mean, the deepest sense of connection. Magnets can also repel. And so, we want to make sure that we are using that time leading up to giving birth to pull together, to be on the same page, to know what it is that we want together. What are you scared of? What is he scared of? What is she scared of? What are we all, what are our concerns? Okay, we've got our concerns out. Now let's talk through them. What do you want out of this experience? What is your spouse? How does your spouse want to be involved in this? Those are important things to know. But a lot of times that's not talked about. And so we don't even realize that hey, this is actually a gold mine. And if you would just use this time to kind of get things together, you would be so happy. We just don't know. So I think that is another aspect that I just would really just urge families, please, please focus on communication. Focus on getting on the same page. There are research studies out there about home birth. Go look them up. It's safe. Listen to the stories. The safety is not the issue. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And, not only listening to stories, but a lot of the work that you're doing now too in telling your story. And, you can give back to other people and be that example. And so taking your birth story or your journey and being able to really look at that and then put your own perspective and your own, viewpoints on that so that somebody else can then hear your story. And maybe that's, a starting point in your community or your circle of friends that now because you have been through this journey, you are that example. You are that, person that's able to really comprehend and explain what your journey was like. And so I think it's really cool, how you're getting into all of this storytelling and not only listening to the stories, but then being able to understand, we have our own journey, our own story, our own, mission to tell and being able to emulate that as well.
I think that storytelling is so critical for two big reasons. And one of them, yes, is because it can act as a beacon of light to those around us. A processed story can be so beneficial. But even before that, taking your story and really learning to sit with it, really learning to integrate it into who you are, that's how we heal trauma. It's how we prevent trauma. It's how we heal trauma. It's how we become more of ourselves. I think that as a society, it is very easy for us to numb out. Oh my goodness, all I have to do is pick up my phone and scroll. Why? I don't have to worry about what happened to me in my birth experience that I didn't like because I can just scroll and look at something else. I can listen to a podcast. I can do all of these things that keep me outside of my body. But if we can take our story, good or bad, whether you loved your birth experience or whether things happened to you that were absolutely wrong, just wrong, it wasn't right what happened. Either way, we can take that story and we can learn to go through it, to integrate it into ourselves and process it. And then that story, whether it's oh, that was so happy, or oh, wow, that was really intense. It no longer is a trauma dumping situation, but it is an informative experience. That is one thing that I have learned over the years of interviewing mothers is you can have a story that looks good on paper. If you were to write down the events, you would look at it and be like, oh, that was a good birth. You could have another story that looks not great on paper. If you just see what happened to this mother, it's oh, wow, that's tough. And yet, it may be that when the story is told, the one that looks good, you can hear that there is trauma behind it. And the one that looks not good, that mother has really processed the events, has integrated them into herself, has taken the time to really own that story. And her story does not make me feel nervous when I'm listening to it. It doesn't make my heart rate go up. It doesn't make my blood pressure rise. That's the beauty of stories, is that it's so much about who's telling it and where they are and how they've processed it. So if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, okay, well, I have a story that is not processed, then I would highly recommend taking time to do that. And really quickly, I can just give some quick tips on that. Writing everything out, everything that happened to you, step by step, every detail that you can remember, write it all down. I highly recommend pencil and paper for this. And if you like to type and you're like, I just want to type it out really, really fast, great. Type it all out really, really fast. And then go back with a pencil and paper or a pen and paper and write it out, because the connections that you make in your brain when you're writing with your hand versus typing, it's much deeper. There's way more connections being made. So highly, highly recommend that. And then the next thing is to share your story, all of the details, with someone else, someone who is going to help you co-regulate, someone whose nervous system is going to be able to stay calm and regulated while you share your story. So for some people, really the best option is to start with your animal, like start with a cat, start with a dog, be petting them, rubbing them while you're telling your story. They're regulated, so they're going to help regulate you. I think that a lot of people want to use their spouse for this, and that can be amazing. It also may not be the right answer for the first telling of it, because our spouse, number one, wants to fix things a lot of the time. And number two, they were there, and that might not be the way that they remembered it. And so then there's the like, oh, wait, I thought that I didn't see it that way. Like, that's not what we want for this. We want to get our experience of the events out without judgment. Another option is like, well, maybe your midwife. And once again, your midwife was there. So it may need to be someone who's completely removed from the situation, especially for like a first telling. But someone who can hold your hands, or someone who can put their arm around you, or someone who can look you in the eye and help bring you down, like really regulate you, ground you. And then my favorite thing is emotional freedom technique. And this is it's EFT tapping or other ways that people talk about it. But it's a really great way to go back to especially those places that felt traumatic, that were really traumatizing, and to work through those. And, Sarah, for the Build Your Village conference, I did have like a little tapping video that I did to send out to people that signed up. So maybe we can put that in the show notes for
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, so that they can just like check it out and see what it is. But I walk you through what it looks like to tap. But what's so cool about it is it actually rewires your brain quite quickly. It's pretty wild. And it doesn't take a lot of, you think of therapy, like talk therapy, and you can go for years and still have a lot to dig through. EFT is so quick. Like, it's getting to the root of the problem. It's great to do both of those things. I'm not downing, I'm not saying anything negative about talk therapy, but I am just saying this is a very beneficial practice. And so being able to do that helps us take our story. It helps us be able to talk about it without our body thinking that it's happening to us again right now. Like, because that's what trauma is when your body thinks that the thing is happening again. Like, your body feels like I'm here again. But this takes all of that away from it. So then now we have this story that when we think about it, our heart doesn't start beating out of our chest. And then we can start looking through it truly and asking ourselves, well, what good things happened? Like, how did that piece, how did that actually impact me later? How did this change me? How did this help me? How did I grow because of this? And that's where oh my gosh, just oodles of growth comes. And so that's something that I just really wish for everybody, however your birth unfolded, that we could start really getting our hands dirty in our stories, starting to move things around and really use them for our good.
Yeah. And I think, that's what makes such a good story. And that's what makes like such a good like storytelling technique too, like really getting behind it. Cause that's one thing that you talked about at Build Your Village, and it really stuck out. And like, I remember you were saying, the difference between just like listing the tasks or listing the steps and listing, the things that happened versus like actually telling your story and diving deep in the experience. And that's when we can really start to see the difference. And that's what makes a good story. Like, if somebody's just like, oh yeah, like I walked down the street and I went to the store and then I bought this and then I came home. It's like, okay, Like,
That's the
you're just
list,
telling me, yeah, you're just telling me what happened. But when you talk about, like, how you felt and what went on and what you got and how that made you feel, like, I think it's just diving, like, layer upon layer, and you're gonna find something new every time. You're gonna uncover, a new perspective. And then, like you said, like, maybe just talking to your pet or just going outside and talking to nature about it, and then waiting until, then you bring that story up to somebody else that maybe was there, and then they put their perspective on it, and then you can see a little bit more and, like, add an extra layer. But it is, like, a really long process of telling a story versus telling just the events that happened.
Yes. And when we look back just to if we look back ancestrally, to these older cultures, before the internet, before TV, before all of that, our primary means of entertainment, of information, was storytelling. So, okay, what is the difference between a list and a story? Well, a story has a purpose. A story has a point. There's something that we're trying to give our listener. We're sharing something. And so that point may be to entertain, it may be to educate, it may be to inform, it may be to warn. So, like, our experience, say that you had a traumatic birth experience, you may need to warn other people about that experience. That doesn't mean you traumatize them because you haven't processed it and you're just, blah, this is what happened. But you can share things in a really beautiful way once you have processed them. And that's important. Like, we need to hear the stories that didn't go perfectly. We need those. So, being able to understand that a story has a purpose, it's teaching something, it's sharing something. You get to do that once you can actually interact with the information. First, we have to desensitize ourselves to our own experience, and then we get to share that story. The example that came to me when I was preparing for the Build Your Village thing was my own experience of giving birth the first time, where my husband and I talk about this all the time. We were not prepared. For someone who was acting as a student midwife, like, who, quote, knew the stuff, we did not prepare right. Like, my husband thought I had it. He was like, oh, she's got it. Like, she knows what she's doing. It's perfect. And I thought, yeah, I've got it. It's going to be great. Like, not thinking, like, I need to help you prepare. I need to tell you what I need from you. Like, we had none of that kind of conversation. And we were also young. So, there's that. But after I gave birth to my daughter, I, like, picked her up out of the water, and I was hormonally, like, I was so high as a kite. I've never experienced anything like that before for days and weeks postpartum, but especially those first moments, it was just mind-blowing. And my husband and I were looking back a couple of days after the birth. Someone had filmed it. It was pitch black, so you really couldn't see anything, but you could just hear me. And I was talking to my daughter, and my husband goes, oh my gosh, you sound like a dolphin, which is true. He was not wrong. I did. I was like, you're here. Like, oh, I'm so happy. We did it. We did it. That's what I remember saying. We did it. And I remember in the moment, I was devastated. Like, how could you say this to me, that I sound like a dolphin? I was embarrassed. I felt shame. It was awful. It felt so awful. And it was not emotionally intelligent. We can all agree that was not an emotionally intelligent thing to say to your wife. But he didn't mean anything negative by it. He was just like, wow, you sound like a dolphin. And so truly, for far too long, that story messed with me. Like, I would not watch that video. I would not listen to it. I was kind of embarrassed to even think about it. And then I started doing emotional freedom technique. I started learning to tap. I started learning to heal my nervous system. This was, a few years later. And I was now, like, when I look back at that story, I can relate to it so differently. Number one, thank you. That's the biggest compliment of my life. Dolphins are my favorite animals. Like, yeah, I did sound like a dolphin. Perfect. I love it. Number two, like, think about what I had just done. Number one, I gave birth in the water. Like, that's what I gave birth in the water. So sure, that's a dolphin. Also, I had just dove down to the depths of myself. and I had retrieved my baby and brought it up to the surface, just as a dolphin would if it had given birth, for this baby to get its first breath of air and to begin its life. Like, there's so much to that. And dolphins are incredible mothers, by the way. Like, they're incredible. A lot of them nurse like for a year to 18 months. Like, it's so cool. So it's just so funny how, that story that sequence of events really messed with me. But now it is this funny story that we love and that we laugh about, and I can share happily and tell you about the time that I sounded like a dolphin, and I'm so proud of it. But that's what I'm talking about. I know it's a goofy example, but that is the power of really getting into your experience and seeing it for what it is, and then asking the questions of like, oh, what else does this mean? How else can I apply this? Our perspective changes everything. And guess what? You get to choose your perspective. It's not written in stone. You have a prefrontal cortex. You can change your mind. Like, it's beautiful. So that is what I want everybody to understand, that like, you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to stay stuck in the pain of what you think your story is. Your perspective can be changed.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that again. Like, I loved that. I loved your whole talk at Build Your Village, but like that part specifically, like, I'm even still like, my cheeks are hurting again, like beaming so much, because it is true. It's like, you can take it as, what it is. And then like, you can look at it differently and be like, yeah, heck yeah, I was a dolphin. Mm-hmm. And like, dolphin moms are awesome.
They're so cool.
Yeah. And it really is like a matter of just like owning your story and taking that perspective and using every ounce of it to make up like who you are, who you're becoming, and what that looks like and how it's perceived and how you perceive it. And being able to really flip that around or see it differently. And we can change. We can, even just change an exact scenario that happened and look back on it and have it be different. And I think a lot of like the birthing experience, like, I'm even trying to look back on our son's birth and be like, wait, what happened? How did that, like, I'm like, I forget what things felt like. And so like, it very easily can like slip through your mind. But when we kind of go back and we really process it again and we look at those different aspects of it, we can remember parts of it. And there are going to be parts that slip away. It just all kind of comes together.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing what our minds can do. It's amazing the power that we have to heal. We have the power to heal inside of ourselves. That is wild. It's incredible. And our ability to heal ourselves is what heals generations, both past generations, our parents' generation, and future generations, especially that. Being able to heal for our children. Oh, yeah. How amazing.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I mean, I feel like I could talk to you all day and we could chit chat and keep on going on. And how can people get in contact with you and, let us know what you're up to and what you're doing right now?
Check out Happy Homebirth Podcast on Instagram. As of this morning, when Sarah and I were recording, I had gotten hacked. So if you see anything about casinos, I'm not rebranding. I was hacked. But yeah, Instagram is great. The Happy Homebirth is the name of the podcast. You can find it on anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Reach out to me. I'm happy to chat.
Well, thank you again.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. This was a blast.
Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button. Share this episode with a friend. Message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.